Welcome. This is a special stream that I've been really excited to do. I finally have my new PC built. I had to redo all my OBS stuff, so that's why everything looks different right now. But I needed to change. I needed to freshen up. So we got a couple different scenes, obviously, but the main thing about tonight is I'm building my Skytech Kronos Mini. I'm building that back because I'm using the same motherboard, processor, RAM, video card. Got a new SSD for it, and I've got a new power supply because the original one had failed. But yeah, I'm really excited to do this. I think it's gonna be a lot of fun. Anyway, that's some of the Harris Heller stream beats that I used to always listen to. I figured I'd put something like that, something that was, you know, CDMA free, not to worry about copyright and all that crap. But what I'm really excited to show you guys is part of this new setup. Includes a new scene for the streams and another camera. So I'm going to show you guys what the other camera's showing, and actually it's going to give you a hint as to how this is going to go down. This is the new one. This is actually the desk directly to my left. They're flipped a little bit in the video, but if I put you guys over here on the headset, now you lose me a little bit. I might be able to do the angle different, but you can see me here now. So obviously here we have our motherboard, our power supply, our case, and case fans. This is your case fan controller. This controls all your RGB. This one came with the fans. It's cheap, but it works. I've got a Cooler Master CPU cooler that actually came off this originally, and I put my AIO on, and then I'm putting this back on this one for this build. Here we've got our Western Digital. It's really hard to see in this camera, I just realized as well. But this is our Western Digital 1 terabyte solid state drive. This here is a Rosewell ARC 750 power supply that I'll be using. Unfortunately, we're not putting an RTX 3060 in this. I just reused the box. This is actually my GTX 1660 Super in this one. While we're going and unboxing this here, I will tell you guys, I was really happy. I appreciate everybody that helped out with the with getting the new motherboard and CPU, the power supply, and the hard drive to be able to build this one and upgrade my PC. I ended up going with the Asus ROG Strix B550F gaming motherboard. And a Ryzen 7 5700X. It's an 8-core processor. I'm super happy with it so far. I mean, obviously a fresh install of Windows really helped everything, but this is a Wi-Fi card that was in this originally. We might reinstall that as well, guys, because if I end up putting this in my kid's room at some point, then she'd be able to have Wi-Fi at the very least. Now, obviously, this one right here, guys, this is an MSI 1660 Super. This thing was a beast for back in the day for what it was. I mean, for when I first got it, 2 years ago, this thing did awesome. This is the, like I said, MSI dual fan. It was awesome. It's a GeForce GTX 1660 Super Ventus XS OC, so it's an overclocked version. It handled Call of Duty really well. But doing the Call of Duty and the streaming at the same time, it got a little rough. That's how I ended up, or why I ended up going up to the RTX, and who doesn't want a 3060, right? I guess unless you've got a 40 series card, Anyway, we're going to jump right into this, guys. I need to kind of move things around while we're talking here and get some room to work, but if you guys have any questions about anything that I'm doing or how to do anything here, just ask. Just hit me up in the chat there. I'll be glad to answer any questions. If you want something clipped to be able to go back to it later, we can do all that. I'm gonna start with first things first. I'm gonna go ahead and take the motherboard out of the packaging. You can see I already had thermal paste on here. I'm not gonna install the CPU in this video. That's only because of the fact that I already had it installed. I didn't want to risk damaging pins on it or anything of that nature, so I don't want to pull it out to put it back in. They're pretty simple, guys. I'll show you on here. there's an arm right here on the bottom that you just pull down on and then lift up. You got to be careful. They can break fairly easily. And then you let you line up a tab. There's a corner that's marked with an arrow, and you can look at it and see that there's a pin missing in that one corner, and so it only fits one way. You drop it in with the arm up, gravity pulls it down in, and you lock the arm. It's that simple. The only other step you're gonna have to watch, if you get a new case, your risers might not be up in there. So back here inside this case, you've got risers that the motherboard sits on. There's holes in the motherboard in these 6 locations that bolt it to the case. You've got to have risers off the case, so all these contacts on the back don't come in contact with the metal of the case. It rises it off the back wall of the case. So you'll want to make sure mine are already in, but there'll be different patterns for different size motherboards depending on the case you have. It's pretty easy to do. Before you set it in, once your risers are installed, you'll need this right here. This is your I/O panel. It's your input output panel. This literally just snaps into your case. You want to make sure it'll line up the way the motherboard sits, and it just snaps in the back right here. Fairly straightforward. Be careful, because I'm not gonna lie, they are kind of thin, sharp metal. You can mess up a finger pretty quickly. But once that's in, it's as simple as setting this up in here. Your I/O header panel will help balance the board for you. Make sure you got the correct screws on hand, obviously, before you go to put this in. You'll need a Phillips screwdriver for these guys. They're pretty straightforward, easy to handle. None of this is like rocket science. You're not going to have like a degree to be able to put this together, guys. I've been building my own since I was 7. That was when I built my first PC, and it was 2 desktops I tore apart to put one together. All right, so I've got 2 of them installed here. We're going to go through and get all 6 of these motherboard screws in. Like I said, if you guys have any questions at all, just want to say hi, drop down in that chat. I'd love to hear from you guys. I appreciate those of you that are here and hanging out. Now, you're probably going to see me do something that's not technically correct here and there, guys. Like I don't have a static wristband. I've built so many PCs in a lot sketchier conditions, like on carpeted floors rather than this vinyl floor that I've got in here. And I've never had an issue. You gotta build up some serious static to actually damage components. Not that safety doesn't help, because I mean, if you don't use it at all, you're bound to make a mistake eventually. This is actually empty because it's already on there, but this little tube here, you guys, this is a Cooler Master Gel Pro. This is their thermal compound for the heat sinks on the coolers. Great stuff. I've never had a problem with this. It comes with any Cooler Master cooler you get. Make sure when you apply it, you want to spread it evenly. If you have a razor blade, you can buy a little spatula, like a little plastic spatula for doing it. None of it's really needed. If you got like a razor blade or a razor knife you can pull the blade out of, that's what I would recommend. Now, I've got the motherboard mounted, I/O panel in. We're going to go ahead and pull this a little closer, because we're also going to access the backside here in a few minutes. Now, when you go to mount this, you want to keep in mind where your CPU fan plug is. Now, it's a little hard to see with it like this, so let's lean it up. Right here in the top of the motherboard, next to the RAM slots, there is a 4-pin riser that comes off the board for your CPU fan. Now, this is the most important one. There's also case fan risers. There's all sorts of things that you'll find on motherboards. But if you do not plug in your CPU fan there, it will freak out and not let you get past the BIOS boot screen, and it'll let you know that there was a CPU fan error. And yeah, you'll have to fix that before it'll let you boot into your system. Now, these clips are fairly simple. There's some styles that just bolts on all 4 corners. There's some that have like a dual clip. There's a number of different ways they mount. This one's pretty simple with it's got 2 clasps. You hook the bottom one, get the top one in place, and then there's a little arm you roll to tighten it down. Pretty straightforward stuff. It's Easy to use, easy to hook up. Right, there we go. Give her a good wiggle to make sure she's seated and that thermal compound's good. And we'll make sure to plug it into the motherboard. All right, there we go. Now, while we're in here, we'll go ahead and grab our RAM out. Anytime you're buying RAM, guys, always pair it. Like, buy it in sets. If you're going to put 2 sticks in, buy a pair. They've been tested. They know they're stable. That's the best way to do it. If you're going to say, I got right now, these are XPG Gamix D10s. This is a DDR4 3000 megahertz 8 gig stick. So this will have a total of 16 once we get it all here together. Again, these are pretty straightforward as well. There'll be little cleats on either end of the strips where your RAMs mount, or your RAM sticks mount. You just want to make sure they're open. You'll notice there's a notch in the connection side. You want to line that up with the notch in the connector itself, and you literally just want to apply even pressure on either side, and those cleats will just kick in and lock once you got it seated all the way. And it's the same for the next one. You just do that one more time. Okay, there's our RAM seated. See, this is flying by, guys. This stuff is not that hard. People make it really complicated, or they get scared and they, you know, make more of a big deal out of it than it is. It's a very straightforward, simple process. Next, we're going to go ahead and get this SSD mounted. This is one of the Western Digital blue 1 terabyte. It's the SA510. I think this was like under $75 on Newegg, and it's a 1 terabyte. It's more than enough to install some games and an operating system on. You'll notice the big yellow strip removed before installing. That's how. This one has 4 holes on the bottom. They also have holes on the side depending on how you're mounting these. This case has a separate mount here. It's just a tray that this sets in, and you put screws through the bottom. I conveniently have these already set out waiting. Anything you buy new should always come with the hardware. And I mean, like, it'll come with bags and bags of it. I've got bags and bags and bags of it just from years of doing this kind of stuff. This one here, we're going to use this new SATA cable that came with another drive that I had. Got 2 in here. We only need 1, but there's conveniently one here with a 90-degree end on it that will snap right on and allow us to pass this down through this channel to hide some wiring. All right. It's just a quick connect. She's in there still. We'll have to route a power wire up once we get our power supply in this. You got your input outputs right here. And then we've got multiple headers for USB, front audio, and what have you. So, you notice something, I'll show you guys the back side of this. Okay. So this is what you see on the back side, guys. This is your back of your motherboard with your CPU. That's the brace for the cooler right there. These right here are the, let's see, these are all my USBs up front, and this is my USB 3.0. I believe one of these is my audio ports. This would be like my power LED, the hard drive LED, and the power switch for the front of the case. We know that all of these are actually going to run up through this same spot. So we got a hole right here towards the back of the case that it'll be convenient for all of them to pop up that way. It should keep this wiring nice and tidy. Now, when I'm going through this here, I'm going to go ahead and push probably all of it up in there just to save me a little bit of space once I get the hard drive or the power supply mounted. Once that power supply is mounted, at that point, I will tuck these back up where they need to go. Let's not get that SATA cable wrapped up in there just yet. I'm also going to take this opportunity while these are all here, going to where they need to go to zip tie a few of them in place to help with, you know, keeping wires where they need to go and not having a rat's nest back here. Cable management is what you would call that, you guys. if you don't already know. Okay, so our front USB 3.0, that's pretty easy. If you guys don't know where these connections are, you can always find the motherboard's owner's manual or like product manual, and it'll give you all the information you need on these. This one here looks to be all labeled except for the front panel. Oh, that is labeled. I'm an idiot. It totally has it stamped right on here, USB. If I would have looked, I would have known. Okay, so we're gonna get that front USB plugged in, and what that does is that connects these top ports here, guys. All these USB 3.0, the two USB 2.0s, and my front headphone and microphone inputs. All right, so these are the little connectors that go to this front panel. Now this shows me that the hard drive LED is the second set over, and the positive needs to be on the left side. These are kind of small, you guys. Make sure you got good lighting. Read where you're putting them. If you don't, your power button might not work. If it's got a reset switch, that might not work either. Your power light or hard drive activity light might not work either. There's our power LED and our hard drive LED. And then our power switch goes right here. Now we go back and pull all this slack right back out to the back panel. Now we end up with really clean cables down here, not all flopping around and hanging out. I would like to pull this tag off of here because that just looks like trash. Surprised that wasn't off there already, but hey. I'll tuck this wire down behind that cooler so you won't even see it. Next thing I'm going to do is go ahead and install some of these case fans. Try to get them in here and out of the way and working. These are the case fans that I got. They're LED ring and then LED in the center too, I believe. So they don't, unfortunately about these are like some cheaper, I guess, Chinese brand ones, and they don't have arrows that tell you which way they blow. So it's a 50-50 shot. I might have to go back and swap these around to be able to get the correct airflow that I'm wanting. Obviously I want the front pulling air in. I want the back behind the CPU cooler pulling air out to pull that heat off that. And then the case here, I'm gonna have it pulling out as well to remove heat up top. So hopefully that's how this is going to be. I'm basing this off the other fans I have in my other PC and how they're hooked up on how I'm doing this one. These are pretty simple. It's a 4-bolt 120 millimeter fan. They've got a really coarse headed or coarse threaded plastic screw that screws into them. We're going to pull these through here. We're gonna have to mount our controller once we get all these fans ran back here, figure out where to mount it to catch up all the fans to this controller, and also the LED for the front of the case there. And it's kind of fancy, comes with a little remote control to change things up. It's got all sorts of options. We'll check that out once we get everything put together and powered on. The next ones we're gonna be doing are gonna be on the top of the case here. And assuming again that this is the airflow direction, we're gonna mount, it looks like I can get 2. I don't believe I'll get 3 in this case. I got the back and top case fans. We're about to work on these front, hopefully 3, but I'm thinking it's gonna be 2. And then we're gonna start putting a power supply in. We're just gonna mount our 2 where we can mount them and be happy about it. Again, like before, make sure you pay attention to where your wire is. You have to get these in these slots it's got for the screw holes. We want it to come from the inside to get them put in. All right. Last one here. And that is wrapped up. The wires already ran to the back. Let's spin this sucker around and get our fan controller mounted and all these wires cleaned up. I'm probably gonna need some more zip ties, I just realized as well. This Chronos Mini was a cool computer when I got it, man. Like I liked it a lot. This was the first like legit one I built. Like back in the late 90s, early 2000s, we started building custom gaming PCs, and we would cut the side panels out and mount plexiglass in there and put LEDs in. But like, you didn't have like RGB shit on your video card, and I mean, and they looked like trash. That nobody cared how they looked. Components did not have a very good look back in those days, early 2000s and stuff. But now, I mean, they're damn near pieces of art. I mean, they're cool, and I really enjoy doing this stuff. This case, though, is even being a mid case, it does the job. So what we need to do is get all of our ends together here and halfway untangled, and we'll figure out where all these can reach to together. Now, will this fit? I need it to be like right here, actually. We're just gonna go ahead and mount this and deal with the consequences later. Okay, now we're gonna go ahead and plug in these fans to the controller. They only go in one way. They've got little tabs that hold them. Nothing to be afraid of here. Pretty simple stuff. This one happens to have fans down both sides and then the LED strips in the front. I also realized I just screwed up by snapping that front cover on, because there is a cord that I forgot to hook up, and that's the one that goes to the RGB strips on either side of the front of the case. So we're going to have to pop that back off in just a second. Again, no big deal. All we got to worry about is this being free. Okay, that's going to hang down here. This is our SATA power connector to power the fan unit. We're going to slide it right behind here. It tucks down out of the way. And that's keeping that fairly tidy. This is a bit of a jumble, more than I wish it was, but all right. Now we're going to keep it turned this way, because the next one to go in is our power supply. Now, it's pretty straightforward stuff here. You slide her straight in to the back. Make sure there's no wires getting pinched when you do so. Spin her around here. And line up your mounting holes. Easy stuff, easy peasy. You guys don't have to worry about like torquing the heck out of these. Don't be snapping bolts. There ain't no need in all that. Just enough pressure to hold it, fasten it securely, you know. Now we're gonna come back here. This is a non-modular power supply, which kind of sucks, but they're on the cheaper end. That's why we went with it. It's still a good one. It's a Rosewell ARC 750. They make a good product. I've never had a problem out of Rosewell, really. Now this is your main motherboard connector. We're obviously going to need the PCIe's for our video card power for our GPU. We're also going to need the 4-pin connectors for the CPU for on the motherboard. Just trying to untangle these as best as possible. And then we're going to need a SATA for the hard drive and for the LED controller. Luckily, they're all right here together. Actually, this is a Molex connector, which thankfully this power supply actually has one of. We have to pass one of these up through the hole where our hard drive's at, which also has some other wires coming through it, so it's gonna be a hair tight, but we'll get it. We also need to get our, let's start with our CPU. That's gonna be the easiest one. So on the motherboard right next to the RAM down here, guys, you're gonna have your main connector for your motherboard power. I'm gonna squeeze this in between this right here. You'll note it has a tab on one side of it, so it can only be plugged in one way to the motherboard. You want to find that tab, which ours is towards the front, and orient your plug the correct way when you go to plug it into the motherboard. Do not force it. Each hole is shaped differently, So they don't, it won't fit but one way. So if it's really tight, don't force it. Now that one's a 24 pin connector, so it's kind of tough. You want to make sure you get it in there. We're tucking all the rest back behind, so we have as least amount of wire showing as possible inside this case. I'm trying to do a decent job at cable management. Obviously it's not going to be perfect, and I know that, but I'd like to keep it as clean as possible, guys. I mean, our next two are going to be our 4-pin for the motherboard. Let's get the rest of these power connectors where they need to be. All right, so we need the Molex for our fan controller. All right, we now have RGB power. So the only thing that should leave now is our SATA connector for our solid state. We will shove that up in here in just a second. Oh, we do have another power we have to run, by the way, but let's get we got to get the GPU mounted first to find out where that power needs to go. Before I do the GPU, I'm going to go ahead and mount this wireless card. Only because it's small and it fits up under the GPU, and I'd rather not. That's a double slot GPU though. I don't know how they did this. I guess it fits. Barely. Barely. Anyway. All right. Whenever you're installing any like PCIe slot cards, the screw goes in, there's a U shape that it sits in, and you want to make sure that card's lifted up so it's not pulling down on your motherboard. That's what I was telling Overseer a minute ago. Mobile. This GPU here, this 1660, has a double slot is what it takes up. It's got 2 holes for screws to support it, and this runs down the backbone of the actual card to help keep it in place. All right, we need our PCIe 8-pin connector, and we're gonna run that up right through the side here. All right, that right there, boys and girls, is a PC. We've got our motherboard, our RAM, our CPU cooler, all our case fans, our controller, our power supply, our SSD, the graphics card, our wireless card. Everything's installed tight, screwed down. Oh, let's see here. Okay. Pretty straightforward stuff right here. I would just do a fresh install at home. If you've got a USB flash drive that's over 8 gigabytes, you can do a Windows install flash drive for free. And then you can reactivate based on your old Windows profile on the PC you're on, and you'd be fine. We got mouse and keyboard. Our network cable. All right. Get our USB plugged into there. I guess this is best time as ever. Flip the switch on the back and watch it catch on fire. Aha! First boot. It powered on. We actually have it boots. And the RGB controller works too. How cool is that? Let me turn off these big lights real quick so you guys can see this a little better.